Alrighty, my secondary math 2 class. We are going to be talking more about graphing quadratics in standard and vertex form. Okay, so 1 and 2 are both in standard form. Okay, so let's go ahead and just remind ourselves, what does standard form even look like? So standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, we can identify a, b, and c looking at our equation or function. Okay, so let's go ahead and start graphing these guys. So in order to graph a quadratic in quadratic form, we have to use our mini formula, x. In fact, let's write it up here on our, where we have a little more space. X equals negative b over 2 times a. Okay, so this is super important when graphing quadratics in standard form. Okay, so over here on 1, first thing we got to do before we plug anything in is identify a, b, and c. Okay, so using our formula, we need b and a. Okay, so our formula, our mini formula is x is equal to negative b over 2 times a. Okay, well, if I need to plug in b on top, what am I plugging in for my b? I'm plugging in positive 6. Okay, and if I need to plug in a on my bottom, what am I plugging in for a? I'm plugging in negative 1. Okay, so on top I have negative 6. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. What is 6 divided by 2? We get positive 3. Okay, so our vertex for number 1, the x part of our vertex, we found is positive 3. Okay, well now we need to find the y. So in order to find the y, we are going to take our x that we found and plug it into our equation. Everywhere we see an x, we're going to plug in 3. Okay, so I have y equals negative x squared plus 6 times x, minus 5. Sorry, almost wrote an add. Okay, and everywhere I see an x, I'm going to plug in positive 3. Okay, awesome. So now, here's the tricky part right here. This is not saying negative 3 squared. This is saying 3 squared times negative 1, because remember in PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Which comes first, exponents or multiplication? Remember, exponents comes first. So we need to figure out what is 3 squared. Okay, 3 times 3 is 9, but then negative 1 times 9 is negative 9. Okay, if you said negative 3 squared, you would have gotten positive 9, and that would have totally changed our answer. So that is negative 9. Okay, now we have 6 times 3 is positive 18 and minus 5. Okay, so now we can go ahead and just put all of this into our calculator if you'd like. You're always welcome to use a calculator. Negative 9 plus 18 minus 5 is going to give me positive 4. Okay, so we found our y part of our vertex is positive 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and graph this. So always find your x part first, so identify positive 3, and then go up to positive 4. Okay, here is the new thing we're learning today. When it's a negative, it's not, our arrows are not going to go up anymore. They're actually going to go down, but we're still going to use the same rule. Okay, so down 1 over 1, down 3 over 1. Mirror on this side, down 1 over 1, down 3 over 1. And connect that with your u, your parabola, and there we go. So since our parabola is going down, that means that this vertex is a maximum because it's at the very top. Okay, so whenever you see a negative or a negative 1 for your a, it's going down. Okay, the arrows are pointing down. Beautiful. Okay, let's do number 2. So we need to plug in, well, first we need to identify A, B, and C. Okay, so A, B, C in standard form. Then we need to plug it into our mini formula. X is equal to negative B over 2 times A, and we'll figure out what this is. Okay, so B needs to be plugged in on top. My B is positive 4. A needs to be plugged in on bottom. My A is just positive 1 this time. Okay, so I have negative 4 on top divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay, negative 4 divided by 2 is going to give me negative 2. Okay, so I found the X part of my vertex to be, whoops, negative 2. Okay, well now we can use this to find the Y part of our vertex. We're going to take this negative 2, plug it into our quadratic equation in order to find Y. Okay, so I have Y equals X squared plus 4X plus 2. Okay, and everywhere I see that space where X used to be, I'm going to plug in negative 2 because we found out that X equals negative 2. Negative 2 and negative 2. Okay, so now I can go ahead and solve. Okay, so what is negative 2 times negative 2 or negative 2 squared? We get positive 4. What is 4 times negative 2? We get negative 8 and plus 2 on the end. Okay, remember we have to multiply and do exponents before we can add. Okay, so now that I'm at this point, I can just plug it into my calculator. 4 minus 8 plus 2 equals negative 2. Okay, now we can go ahead and find this coordinate point on our graph. Okay, so find negative 2 on your X, and then go down to negative 2 on your Y. Okay, now we need to check, was this a positive or a negative A? It was positive, so we can go up 1 over 1 and up 3 over 1. Up 1 over 1 and up 3 over 1. And connect those points with your U, put arrows at the end. And since our vertex is at the very bottom, is this a minimum or a maximum? This one is going to be a minimum. Beautiful. Okay, so now we have quadratics in vertex form. So let's go ahead and remember, let's write on our notes, what is vertex form? What does it look like? Okay, well, vertex form is really nice because we don't have to solve for our vertex. We can just identify it using our equation. So vertex form is Y equals A times X minus H squared plus K. Okay, well, if vertex form tells us our vertex, what is our vertex in vertex form? Remember, it's H, comma, K. Okay, but what do we have to remember about the H? Remember how it has this negative in front of it? That means that the sign changes in your equation, okay? So let's go ahead and look at number 3. Okay, so let's identify our H and our K. So H is inside my parentheses. K is on the outside. So then what is my vertex? Okay, it's HK, but what do we have to do with the H? We have to change the sign on it. Okay, so this was a positive 2. Now it's a negative 2. Okay, the K stays the same. So then our K is just positive 3. Alrighty. So now we can go ahead and graph this guy. Okay, so find negative 2 on your x-axis. Go up to 3 on your y. But remember, we have this negative a. Remember, a is actually in front. What happens when our a is negative? What happened up here? Our arrows point down. Okay, so now we're still going to use our trick. So down 1, over 1, and down 3, over 1. Down 1, over 1, and down 3, over 1. So it creates that perfectly symmetrical U, and we are done. Is my vertex a maximum or a minimum here? This one is at the very top, which means it's a maximum. Beautiful. Okay, so let's identify on number 4 my H and my K. Okay, so that means my vertex, remember, is H comma K, but what do we have to do with the H? We have to change the sign. Okay, so this was a positive 1, now it's a negative 1. K stays the same, so it stays positive 1. Okay, we can go ahead and graph this. So find negative 1 first, then go up to positive 1. Okay, my A is technically right here. Is it positive or negative? It's positive, so my arrows are going to go up 1 over 1, up 3 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 3 over 1. Connect those with your U, arrows at the end. And then is our vertex a maximum or a minimum if it's at the very bottom? It's a minimum. Beautiful. Okay, only 2 more examples of graphing them in vertex form. Okay, so let's look at number 5. So remember, we need to identify our H and our K because that's our vertex. Okay, so for number 5, our vertex is H comma K. What do we have to do with the H? We have to change the sign. So this was a positive 3, now it's a negative 3. K stays the same, so it stays negative 1. Okay, let's go ahead and graph this. So find negative 3 first, go down to negative 1. Okay, my A in front of my parentheses is positive 1, so we are going up 1 over 1, and up 3 over 1. Up 1 over 1, up 3 over 1. Okay, connect those with your U, arrows at the end. Is my vertex a maximum or a minimum if it's at the very bottom? Again, that is a minimum. Perfect. Okay, last example. Find your H and your K because that's our vertex. So for number 6, our vertex is, remember our H comes first, we have to change the sign. So this was a positive 1, now it's a negative 1. K stays the same, so positive 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and graph it. Find negative 1, go up to positive 4, way up there. Okay, now we have to ask ourselves, was my A positive or negative? Okay, we see that it's actually negative this time, so we're going down. Down 1 over 1, and down 3 over 1. Down 1 over 1, down 3 over 1. Connect those, arrows at the end. And is my vertex here a maximum or a minimum at the very top? It is a maximum. Okay, beautiful. Awesome, those are your notes for today. There is an assignment that goes with it.